I'm seeing. Okay, I think we're live now. I see Vaughn. Vaughn, you and Destin. What are you doing down there? All right, I think we're live now. So we got Gordon. Hey, got a couple Traverse City, Michigan people up here. Craig, I don't know if you've ever been to Traverse City, but it's awful nice for sure.
I have. I ran a marathon there actually.
Did you in the middle of the wintertime, I'm sure?
No, it's really pretty. Actually, Traverse City is really something.
Yeah, right on that. I guess Lake Michigan or something like that. It's right on that. You know, it's crazy. And man, we went in October. It was fantastic. Very much enjoyed it. But imagine in the winter. I imagine that's set up really great for Christmas, Traverse City. That's for sure.
If you like cherries, it's a great place to be.
Well, we got Vaughn here is in Destin, Florida. You ever been down there, Craig? Destin, Florida?
A lot of different spots in Florida. I don't know if I've been to Destin.
It's on the Panhandle, just one of the best beaches you ever see. Oh my goodness, it's fantastic. It's nice. So you got Traverse City in the north and Destin, Florida in the south, and tough to go wrong with either places. Then you got Utah, where you are at, and then you got Atlanta. Hey, Atlanta's bringing up the rear. Atlanta. I appreciate you jumping on board here. Hey, there's another Traverse City. My man Roger up there. Jeez Louise, we are cherry capital of the world. That's what this guy says, Gordon, about Traverse City. So who knew that Michigan had so many cherries? I did not, but there you go. I don't like cherries anyway, because I'm an apple guy. So people like cherries, weak. Apples are the way to go. What's the biggest fruit you have in Michigan? Utah? Anything?
No, we grow a lot of peaches here, actually.
Oh, really?
One little, in Brigham City, and surprising. Apricots, peaches, apples. In fact, we just finished pressing apple cider a couple nights ago.
You got apple trees?
Yeah.
I mean, in your backyard?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I've tried to grow apples. I've had 4 apple trees there. Not a one produces. It's crazy. It drives me insane. Plums are producing. Fig trees producing. Even got a peach tree that produces, but the squirrels get them. And I've tried every which way to Sunday to keep the squirrels off. But my apple trees just don't do it. Crazy. It's really frustrating. But all right. Well, let's get cracking here, Craig. So I appreciate you jumping on board again. It's all everyone remembers here. We've got Craig Israelsen from Utah. He's got his retirement portfolio analyzer software, which is just fantastic. And Craig, I've done a million videos on that since last time we've spoken, and it's just great. So, we got so far about 50 people on board right now. So, however you want to proceed, just take it away. Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll press present, right?
I think so. Yes, sir.
Share screen,
and we'll see if it works. Hopefully. Do I have to make you the? Oh, wait, here we go. I'm gonna add to stage. There we go. Oh, can you see the Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania? What's Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania? Hey, Denise.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Okay. So I'm gonna.
Well, we know that works. So whenever you get it organized, and guys, if you have questions, I got to get out of here in an hour. I got to cook some steaks. So if y'all have questions for Craig, put them in caps and I'll star them and then we'll get to them towards the end. So if y'all have, there you go.
Is that working?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep, there you go. So just real quick. So if you guys got questions, just put them in caps and I'll star them. Then we'll get to them at the end.
Okay. So this is called, let me just go to the main screen here, the Retirement Portfolio Analyzer. And a person does not have to be retired to utilize it. It's both a tool as you ramp up toward retirement and a tool that I think can be useful during retirement. But the key is just right here in the pink. This spreadsheet allows you to test drive a retirement portfolio over multiple 25-year periods. So we're going to focus on the 98-year period from 1926 to 2023. That's the longest time frame that we can analyze, because 1926, that's the earliest I can get data, annual performance data for large cap U.S. stocks, small cap U.S. stocks, bonds, U.S. bonds, and U.S. cash. Those 4 asset classes are fact right here. And there's other asset classes, as you know. We could add non-US stock, we could add real estate and commodities, but that only allows us to go back to 1970. So the real essence of the RPA, the Retirement Portfolio Analyzer, is best illustrated, I think, over the longest time frame. So there's probably 4 tabs we're going to kind of key on, but the portfolio data tab is what you're looking at. Then there's the retirement budget. There's the printout, which is really just a summary. And then there's the summary of the analytics. And we'll get to the, if we have time, we'll get to this summary tab again. But interestingly, I want to start with the retirement budget. So the retirement budget tab and the portfolio data tab, this one and this one, are really meant to rely upon each other. And the retirement budget allows an individual to plug in as many variables as I think exist to anticipate both your income and your outflow, your income and your expenses during retirement. So a couple of key things, and I'm going to blow this up a little bit so you can just see it better. So the bright yellow cells are the cells that you, the user, can enter your data. Everything else is going to be calculated for you. The first yellow cell is the estimated Social Security COLA, or the cost of living adjustment. Let's go ahead and enter 2.5%. Okay, and then you've got your Social Security monthly income, either estimated or your actual. So let's just, for the ease of it, let's just assume that the person using this is right now age 73, and that's changeable back on the portfolio data tab. We can change the age, but that's just simple because that allows the RMD to factor into the equations. So let's say that your monthly Social Security income is $3,000. It starts in year 1, meaning now, or it started back whenever you started. Your spouse's estimated Social Security, let's say that's $2,000, starts in year 1, and the benefits end in year 26. That's kind of funny, but the only reason that's there is if for some reason there was a year beyond 25, because remember, this is a 25-year lookout. Mm-hmm. You know, if they ended for, I don't know what the reason would be, but in year 15, then it would zero out the benefits in year 15 through 25. So, like I say, I can't think of a scenario, but maybe there's one out there. So let's, put that 26. Okay, so right away then, with your COLA of 2.5, here's the Social Security benefits for you and your spouse per year. Well, excuse me, that's the monthly, out through 25 years. The next variable that you can enter is other monthly income from whatever the source. And I've just pre-populated $2,000 a month. Obviously, that can be changed. Let's change it to $1,500 per month. Just copy that down. Okay. Then the next column in J, column J, is the monthly portfolio withdrawal estimated. Now, that's coming from the portfolio data tab. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave that portfolio balance at $1 million, but we'll come back to that because based on the withdrawal rate that we select, based upon the asset allocation that we select, based upon all of the variables associated with the portfolio that represents your retirement portfolio, those can all be tweaked and adjusted. As they stand right now, your average monthly portfolio withdrawal in year 1 is 4,563. The average monthly portfolio withdrawal in year 2 is 4,743. And you can see it delightfully escalates all the way up through year 25. So this portfolio.
Greg, getting some feedback. I don't know. Are you guys hearing? It sounds like there's a. Are you hearing that by chance?
I'm not hearing any feedback. Let me dial down my microphone. Is that
okay.
better?
Well, make sure we can hear you. Can you say something?
If I'm talking loud enough, is that okay?
Yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah. There is feedback. It's weird. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that would be coming from.
All right, but keep going. Absolutely.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So this portfolio withdrawal will change if we, in just a few minutes, as we go into this tab right here and adjust all of these variables in this area. That could change, but let's kind of fine tune our budget and then go back into the portfolio. So we've got our Social Security. Now, and if there's not a spouse involved, then you can just do a number of things, go to 0. That's the easiest thing. That's the obvious thing. Let's put it back to 2,000. Okay, so this gives us in column L the estimated total monthly gross income from all sources right here. It's $11,063 a month in year 1. Year 2 is $11,368, and so forth down through year 25. So it's growing. The next column M is the percent of monthly income that's taxable. Just for ease, let's say it's all taxable. The next bright yellow cell is what is the anticipated tax rate for both federal and state. I've just put in 25%. You can just leave it there. That gives us then the estimated total net monthly income from all sources, meaning after tax. So about $8,300 in year 1. Now, just for information, as it says here, just FYI, here's the tax owed. And the tax owed is already accounted for in your monthly budget surplus or deficit, which you're going to see in a second. So just for information, that's the tax that'll be owed based on that gross income of $11,063 and the fact that it's all taxable and that it's going to be taxed at 25%. So that's the combined federal and state tax owed in dollars, $2,766. Now the real kicker. In column R, the estimated monthly needed retirement, monthly income needed in retirement. So I put that at 5,000. Let's put it at 7,000. No, let's put it at 8,000 actually. And let's just, again, it may not, we're estimating, and I know that's hard, but it's better to have some control over the estimate than not have control over the estimate. So at 8,000, it may go up over time, it may go down over time, it's hard to know. But the next column shows the monthly estimated budget surplus or deficit here in column T. And you see that it's really, $8,000 puts us really close, just a slight positive surplus each month.
Mm-hmm.
Down to year 25, you have an estimated $7,342 of budget surplus monthly.
If it was deficit, would it be in red or something like that? Or
yeah, so let's go to 9,000 here just for fun.
Okay.
And yeah, it pops to red. And so this is now indicating that in the first 4 years of retirement, you've got monthly deficits. And then starting in year 5, you have a very small surplus each month, and then it grows. Well, the main thing here is, I mean, the Social Security is what it is. You could enter a higher COLA. You could say, well, there's a 3% COLA. Okay, that's going to help a little bit. So you go back, yeah. So that took away the budget deficit in year 4. Yeah. But the real difference maker let me go back to that column. So right here in column T, the reason you've got a deficit in years 1, 2, and 3 and huge surpluses in the latter, say 10 years, is really the fact that the retirement portfolio is growing.
Yeah.
And you're taking out, in this case, 5% of the portfolio value each year. And as the portfolio grows, that means your withdrawal is growing, and that growing withdrawal is solving the budget deficit issue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's ways around that once we start fine tuning. So in column T, everything we've now dealt with is monthly data. So starting in column W through all the rest is now just annualized. So we're just taking the same data, expressing it in annual terms. And so the estimated net annual income in year 1 is 99,000 and change. Yeah. The needed annual income is 9,000 times 12, which is 108. And that produces about an $8,400 annual deficit. And then this column AA is kind of fun, because the reality is, if in retirement we're generating budget surpluses each month, which in this case we're not initially, we're creating deficits, they are cumulative. So in other words, our first deficit in year 1 is $8,400. In year 2, at this moment, we have an estimated deficit of $5,400. Well, 8,431 plus 5,459 is a negative 13,890. So in column AA is the growing deficit or the growing surplus. And we see that we have an overall deficit through year 6. And then starting in year 7, with this estimated budget surplus of 9,207, we finally have sort of paid off our deficit. And from that point forward, we have a growing cumulative budget surplus that rolls forward from year to year. In other words, all of these annual surpluses right here, they go somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, where they go is in savings or in a CD or someplace. So it's estimated at the end of year 25, there's an $849,000
cumulative.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a single word for it. It's just, that's another source of value of, essentially it's like a secondary portfolio.
Yeah, right.
And it's a portfolio that exists in your checking account or your savings account, and it's significant. The actual retirement portfolio itself had a starting balance of $1 million. Of course, we can change that. And then here's the estimated annual end of year values of just the retirement portfolio, independent of budget surpluses or anything else. It's just the portfolio, and it's growing from $1 million up to about 2.2. And that's the average value. There's a lot of variation in that, but that's the average value. And I'll show you how that average value is calculated. And then in column E, in kind of this brownish color, is if there was an RMD involved. And just for fun, let's go to portfolio data and type in RMD so that we can get one involved. Then go to the budget. Let's go back. So now we have an RMD right here. Those are the withdrawal rates that we'll face each year. So at age 73, that first year RMD percentage is 3.77%, meaning there's the average monthly withdrawal, let me say it this way, the monthly portfolio withdrawal averaged 3,145. Based on which rolling 25-year period we're looking at, the withdrawal would have been more or less, just based on the variation of the returns of the portfolio. And that's why we're looking at so many rolling returns. over a 8-year period is so that we can get a handle on the variability around these numbers. But that says that I've got $3,100 that I'm withdrawing. What if I don't need all of it? Well, this next column K, which you didn't see before because it disappears unless there's an RMD involved.
Oh.
And it's asking, okay, so you have an RMD of, in year one, $3,145 each month. What if you need to use all of it minus 1,000? I didn't word that very well. You need all but 1,000 of it. So 1,000 can be reinvested.
Okay.
And if you reinvest it, it's at 3%. And you reinvest it in a savings account, brokerage account, whatever the case might be. And let's just say that all through your retirement years, through the first 25 anyway, you will use, or here's actually something even funner. Let's say that whatever our RMD is, we only need half of it. Okay, so just type an equal sign, grab that cell, multiplied by 0.5, boom, let's just copy that down. So now that says, you know what, I'm going to reinvest half of my RMD. So now we come back over here. That causes a lot of deficits. In other words, that's too heavy. So let's go now and say, all right, let's enter 20% of it. So I'm going to reinvest 20% of it. Okay. Well, that's a little better. That's manageable. So that still puts us at over a 25-year period, we've got $800,000 of budget surplus. But the first, 14 years, we were running on a cumulative basis of a budget deficit. Here's our portfolio value, 1.5 million. Now it was 2 point something when I was just withdrawing 5%. Well, the RMD is a heavier demand on a portfolio because it's an escalating percentage. So it's going to draw down our portfolio more. But I then have this RMD sub account, let's call it, and that has grown now to 728,000. So those are my three sources of what I call estimated total accumulated capital. Whatever your cumulative budget surplus or deficit was, plus your 25th year balance in your retirement portfolio, plus your 25th year balance in your reinvested RMD account, that equals this figure in maroon, just over $3 million. So that's what's happening in the retirement budget tab.
So, Craig, so the deficit that's a cumulative, that's not being taken out of the portfolio though. It's just basically, you're basically taking on debt essentially.
You're taking on debt. Okay, and I think most people that use this are going to tweak it that they're not going to allow that type of deficit.
Right.
So if we go down to 7,500, then we have just really rather trivial deficits the first couple of years. And it's all a function of monthly retirement expenses.
Okay. So theoretically, you could have deficits just like the federal government for every single year.
Yeah.
So obviously, that's got to be paid back from someplace. I get you, but theoretically, we could run deficits, but no one's going to do that because they're like, well, that money's got to be paid from someplace. So they'll most likely have deficits for a couple of years, but generally speaking, it'll be all green because they're like, hey, I don't want to run deficits.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So if I create a deficit machine there. So you've got, $250,000 of deficit by year, 8 or 9.
Right.
And that basically is robbing, because if you look at that number, that minus 232,000 plus almost 5 million plus 108,000 is 1.3. So in fact, in the total estimated total accumulated capital, that has been essentially subtracted from.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like it kind of is actually. Yeah,
it is in terms of this total capital of number. Yeah. So let's go back to 7,500 as our monthly expenses. Okay, so now we've got that in play. That's the retirement. What what I call budget or retirement.
This is actually a pretty good question from Bob. Shouldn't column R be increased with the inflation rate? Is what Bob says. I don't know if.
Oh yeah, so that's kind of fun. And so because this is a spreadsheet, anything in yellow you can enter formulas. So let's go ahead and enter 7,000 right here, and then in the next cell down, press the equal sign, grab that one, times 1.04. So we're going to grow that by 4%. And here's the formula right up here.
Yeah.
R10 times 1.04. And then just copy that down. And now you have a monthly retirement expenses curve, basically. And then the curve is basically influenced by a 4% inflation rate.
Yep. So Bob, you can do whatever you want there. So you can create a 4%, 3%, or no inflation, negative inflation. You can do whatever you want. So it's actually pretty cool. If it's in yellow, you control it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and leave that there.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. And let's go back to portfolio data. Okay. So as it stands right now, let me just make this a little bit bigger. So the current year is 2024. I'll just leave it there. The retirement portfolio account balance, let's say it's 1.2 million. I just changed it. The current age is 73. When withdrawals begin is 73. That can obviously change. Let's say it's 65. Okay, so you're currently 65. You estimate you're going to start withdrawing at 73. And the rationale is there because that's when the RMD is going to force you to. So when you entered these two numbers, 65 and 73, that opens up all this pink stuff right here, this pink text and this number. That because the spreadsheet is looking at the discrepancy between these two numbers, 65 and 73, and it says, oh, so in 8 years, your estimated balance is 2.164. So let's just enter. Just be conservative. Let's enter 2 million. Okay, that's less than. So we have 2 million. And then at that point, it's 8 years later. So enter 73. You're now 73. So that's how we account for, if you're not to that point yet, the spreadsheet will estimate based on the portfolio that you've entered. And let me just illustrate that again. So it's 1.2 million, currently 65. So if this is estimating in 8 years, your estimated balance is 2.1 million. Well, that's assuming this asset allocation, 40% large stock, 20% small stock, 30 bonds, and 10% in cash. If I go to all cash, my estimated balance 8 years is 1.4 million. So this estimate is being derived from whatever asset allocation you've specified and the cost. And right now, the cost of this portfolio is 125 basis points. Well, let's say it's only 50 basis points. Well, then that went up again to about 1.48 million. So it's a pretty handy little estimator of what your distant, whatever, you could put age 50, and now it's a lot bigger because you have over 20 years. Let's go back to 65. Let's go back to a 40, 20, 30, 10 at a 50 basis point cost, 2.2 million. Again, to be conservative, let's just put in 2 million. And then it instructs you, after having done that, please enter the estimated balance in C8 right here, and set your current age equal to the age when your retirement portfolio withdrawals will begin. So that's what we're just being, we're just kind of working with the way the software is designed. So $2 million is the estimated balance. You're now 73. Withdrawals begin at age 73. All this information goes away because you've now met all the demands, basically, of what the software is trying to help you calculate. Mm-hmm. Let's leave it at a 40, 20, 30, 10. The other feature that was recently added is is there a guaranteed portfolio return? Let's actually press yes, in which case the asset allocation goes away, and you now, in this cell, enter the guaranteed portfolio return.
Yeah, right.
And if it's 7, then your results are, okay, well, if you have a guaranteed 7% return, your average withdrawal is 157,000. Your withdrawals increase year over year 100% of the time because your portfolio is growing. And, well, in large part because of the RMD. If we go to it's like a 5% withdrawal rate, they also increase your withdrawals year over year because your portfolio is growing.
Right.
I don't know how common that will be to have a fixed guaranteed return, but anyway, the feature is there for those.
Not for 30 years, unless you got just a newly issued government treasury bond.
Yep.
For 25 years, that's it. But
yep. So let's go back to no. So that brings us back to the asset allocation. The other yellow cells here are the historical performance adjusters. And this is for a person using the software to basically introduce historical optimism or historical pessimism. In other words, the historical returns are what they are. And just for a second here, I'm going to pop into a different tab. I'm going to go down here to annual returns right here. Here's the annual returns that the spreadsheet is utilizing. Here's the large stock. Let me blow this up a little bit. Here's your large stock returns from 1926 on. Here's your small stock annual returns, your bonds, cash, your inflation, and then the returns of your portfolio based on the asset allocation that you've selected. And there's just a lot of data. As we scroll down, here's all the returns going back to 1926. That's the engine of all the analytics. And at the portfolio level, meaning 40% large stock, 20% small, 30 bonds, 10 cash. In this graph, in the annual returns tab, is the year-to-year returns of the portfolio itself. And it's a pretty cool graph because it shows you that 76% of the time it had a positive return, above zero return. And that's pretty impressive. Its average annualized return was 8.4%, and the standard deviation, or this volatility measure, was 13. So as you come back to portfolio data, what these cells allow you to do is to say, you know what, I'm using this program, I'm analyzing historical data, but I'm doing so as a way of trying to understand what the future might hold. So I'm drawing upon the past, trying to cast a shadow of insight into the future. Mm-hmm. Well, what if I think that the future for bonds is grim? Well, the only way I can modify that is to change the past. So if I entered minus 200, which is minus 200 basis points, as soon as I press return, this raw index return is going to go down by 200 basis points, and it just did.
I've been using this a lot. Absolutely. It's pretty cool.
The adjusters. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a way of saying, okay, let's assume that the future is similar to the past, but not as rewarding. Well, in which case you could take 200 basis points off of all 4 asset classes. It's going to hammer cash. So now we have kind of a worst case scenario. This is how it looks like going into the future. Is a past. It's a past. It's been modified. Okay, so
my dog didn't like that negativity, Craig. He said, "How dare you?"
Yeah, even animals can sense it. So that's what you need to do is you need to print this particular screen off, Josh, and stick it someplace where the squirrels can see it. And then not come back.
It's right.
So the average annual withdrawal, again, we have a $2 million portfolio. We have a 60-40. We have a modified history with 200 basis points off all 4 asset classes, the average balance of the retirement portfolio is 3.3, call it $3.4 million. We nearly, well, not doubled it, but the average ending balance was considerably higher than the starting balance, even with these negative adjusters historically. And that's one of the probably the useful ways to think about using the adjusters, is to create a worst case scenario. And if the result of a worst case scenario is an outcome that you can live with, then you can live with it. I mean, we don't have to wake up every day in fear that our portfolio is going to implode. It just won't if we stay with it. Now, so when I say what I just said, there's a couple of key assumptions. All of these results are based on a 60-40, a 60% equity, 40% fixed income allocation through the first 25 years, the first quarter century that we're pulling money out. Yeah. In other words, if we build a 60-40, we got to stay in a 60-40. We can't bail out when the weather gets a little rough. The second assumption is that we need to rebalance. We need to rebalance it so that we end up with a 60-40 at the end of each year. And the rebalancing, of course, basically happens almost automatically, because as we make withdrawals in real time, we're taking money out of the best performers, whether it's the large stock fund, the small stock fund, the bond, the cash. You're basically rebalancing intuitively. On the accumulation, when you're going up the mountain, accumulating money, rebalancing is not as intuitive. But on the downside of the mountain, pulling money out, it just almost doesn't even have, it doesn't have to be taught, because it's intuitive where to take the money out. You take it out of the best performers. Yeah, 100%. And that's what rebalancing is. So in this case, you got $3.3 million ending balance after 25 years. That's your 25th year average ending balance. The portfolio grew 90% of the time. Okay, so it's not 100% of the time. Right. Well, that means that 3.3 average ending balance, there must be some figures that were below 2 million, because 2 million is the start. 3.3 is the average ending balance after the 25th year. But we know that 9.5% of the time, there was not a balance that was larger than the starting. And to get a visual of that, you just go to detailed, you go to detailed analysis. Yeah. Okay, so here's
this right here is way analysis. Cool. How about this chart right here?
This is a very good chart. It took me a while to figure out how best to display all the metrics that are being calculated.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. It is, but it's
so assuming everything that we've now entered pertaining to the portfolio, the blue bar is the ending balance for each. Think of each blue bar as an individual, a person, and there are 74 different people. The first person, in fact, in the introduction, it kind of goes through that. So retiree number 1 is Susan. Her first withdrawal was in 1926. Her 25th withdrawal was in 1950. For Susan, we can calculate the average annual withdrawal during her 25 years. And then she has a single ending balance. Yeah. For Jamie's first withdrawal was in 1927. 25th withdrawal was in 1951. There's an average annual withdrawal for the 25 years for Jamie, but Jamie has one ending balance. So you keep doing that for all these different people. Connor is the 74th person. So that's the easiest way to think about the graph we were just looking at, is that each blue bar is a person. This person, Susan, ended with just under 2 million. So there's one of those occurrences where the portfolio did not grow, but it was relatively close to the starting balance of 2 million, which is in that purple dotted line. The green dot is the balance 5 years into their withdrawals. So in this case, since the withdrawals began at age 73, that green dot is the balance at age 78. we'll notice that most of the time, the blue bar, the height of the blue bar is, again, that's the ending balance in the 25th year, is above the green dot.
Yeah.
And that's particularly encouraging
Yes.
in this case right here. Let's say this is the 25-year period.
Yep.
Let me blow this up. This is the 25-year period from 1937 to 1961, right here. Okay. Now, started out at 2 million. 5 years later was 1.1 million.
Exactly.
Ooh, man, not feeling comfortable. They're 5 years into it, and they've cut their portfolio nearly in half.
Yep.
What do they do? Do they bail? Do they jump out of the boat? No, they didn't. They stayed with it, and by the end of the 25th year, they were at almost 2.6 million.
Yeah, I can't stress how great how important that is, because even though they got blasted with sequence of return risk, the fact that every single time they stayed in this case, and he's doing 5% a year is what he's doing. It's not, but every single time they came back, other than a few. I mean, it's just a
right.
Vast majority of the time they came back where they're well above what they were after 5 years. It's
exactly, and that's what I call this hang in there stat.
Yes.
Which is the percentage of time that the ending balance after 25 years was higher than the balance after 5 years. So how often was the blue bar higher than the green dot? Well, 81% of the time.
That's crazy.
That is a really, really encouraging stat.
Yep.
But the best of all, how many times did the portfolio fail? Well, the portfolio to fail, the blue bar has to disappear. There are no blue bars that disappeared. The worst case scenario was right here, 1929 to 1953. That 5-year period had an ending balance of 1.3 million. Most recently, the most recent two rolling 25-year periods, well, the most recent was 1.44 million. But we just could not kill the portfolio. It was below the starting balance 9% of the time, but then the converse, above it 91% of the time. But in no instance did it ever fail. We never ran out of money. And that's always going to be the case with a percentage-based withdrawal. So if we go back to portfolio data.
Can't stress that enough. It'll always be the case with a percentage rate of withdrawal. You'll never kill the portfolio. That's doesn't mean it's be great, but you'll never kill it.
And remember, this is with all of these historical adjusters.
Exactly.
If we go back to just ask actual historical returns as they really occurred, let's go back to detailed analysis. Oh, wow. Okay, so hang in there.
Right.
Hang in there. The hang in there stat, 99% of the time. There was only one circumstance, where the heck was it, where the 3.6, 3.4, I can't even see where it is.
It's got to be that one you're just looking at, like 19.
Yeah, it's so tight.
Oh, wait, right next to it. I can't tell. Right next to it, Craig.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was in the 1994 to 2018 period. Yeah, and it's just fractional difference. So in virtually every case, the ending balance after your 25th withdrawal was higher than your portfolio balance after your 5th withdrawal. That is so comforting. How often did you grow the nest egg above the starting balance? Every time.
Yeah.
And we got close here in the Depression. We came close, and in no case did you ever kill it. So, and based on your optimism, pessimism, if we just use historical returns as they occurred, that's the historical story. If we go to RMD, now let's go back to the detailed analysis. Okay, things scrunched down a little bit. Only 92% of the time did we grow the portfolio, meaning some of these blue bars are below the starting balance, which is the dotted maroon line. But again, 100% success rate. We never killed the portfolio. The fine tuning that now exists.
Craig, can you just go back to that real quick? I just want to point something out here. See to the far right, everybody. That's the most recent time, and notice that's in the era of low interest rates. And I just, Craig, I find it interesting that everyone says bonds get killed with high interest rates, and I just say that's simply not true. Your current portfolio value could go down, but bonds always go back to par value. And it's interesting because I've been using the software so much. I just like, man, I just it hit me like a ton of bricks. The low interest rates were bad for retirees with bonds because they just weren't able to recoup any kind of inflation, they just weren't. And so I just noticed even during the Depression, we did better than what we did in the last basically 10 cycles, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
It is interesting. And just to illustrate that, let's go to an all bond portfolio.
Yeah.
See, this is where the analyst starts to come out in almost anybody who uses this. They start to think like an analyst and a researcher. Okay, so there's, isn't it funny? So now this is the interest rate cycle, basically.
Yeah. Exactly, 100%. Exactly right.
You're looking at. And did we ever kill the portfolio? Nope, never did. Now, it doesn't grow all that often. It grows during this, it's sort of not in the middle of the time frame, but there were periods of rolling 25-year periods where all bond portfolio performed quite admirably, and you finished out 25 withdrawals, RMD-based withdrawals, with a larger balance. Now, it's unlikely a person is going to do an all bond portfolio. What about an all stock portfolio, all large stock? Let's go look at that. Detailed analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, so now our y-axis just goes crazy because of this one right here. This is the 1975 to 1990. Excuse me. I get emotional. I get emotional when I talk about this. This is the 1975 to 1999 window. And what this graph really illustrates is sequence of returns variability. The different sequences of how returns happen. And 1975 to 1999 is the absolute ideal window. Let me show you why. Let's go to annual returns. And let's go to the portfolio. It doesn't matter because it's all large stock. So here is 1975 right here. So we pick it up after, let me grow this so you can see it. So we pick it up in 1975. We avoid the 1973 and 1974 S&P 500 meltdown. And then we run it out 25 years. Here it is right here. There's those 25 years. Huge numbers in the late 90s, huge returns. You have only 3 losses in the 25-year period. You have a minus 7% in 1977, a loss of just under 5% in 81, and a loss of 3% in 90. Other than that, it's just beautiful sailing. You have huge returns on the front end and huge returns on the back end. If you go to this window right here, that 25-year window, you start off with 2 negative returns. And you just ideally don't want to do that in a retirement portfolio. So this is one of from an analyst perspective, they look at this and say, sequence of returns risk is alive and well. And this is a graph of it, essentially.
But even if you did, if you started in 1972 or 1973, excuse me, just go 2 blue bars to the left of that right there.
You still finished with almost $8 million.
Right. That's exactly.
Right? Even with 2 bad years on the front end. And so, you really have to, you have to look at these kind of results and say, wow, I wish that was my 25-year window right there. Yeah, we all do. You had $20 million from a start of 2 million. But even in this most recent 25 years, from 1999 to 2023, you still finished with just over 2 million. And here's the other thing I wanted to illustrate. This window right here, let me blow this up so you can see it better. So the impact of 2008 is really quite something. Here's the last window. Here's the last 25-year period before 2008 enters the analysis. We finished with almost $7 million. Then 2008 hits, boom, right here. Yeah. You'll notice just this drop off. Yeah. All of these blue bars to the right of this one right here. This is the last, this is pre-2008. Here's the impact of 08 on all the subsequent rolling return, 25-year rolling return periods. It's really, really noticeable when you look for it. Now, so what we've done to this point is we've entered all the variables associated with our portfolio. Let's go back to a 40, 20, 30, 10, a 60-40 portfolio. These summary stats right here are just sort of a quick dashboard. Our average withdrawal is almost $50,000 a year, or $20,000 monthly. We go back to our retirement budget. Okay, now our retirement budget is reflective of this portfolio that we entered, which is now $2 million, because we started with 1.2 million, but we were 65 years old. We don't plan to start withdrawing until we're 73, which is 8 years down the road. That suggested that we're going to have actually more than 2 million, but we entered $2 million. Now we come back to the retirement budget and say, whoa, my average portfolio withdrawal here in column J, wow, I didn't expect that. We scroll over, we've got these monster surpluses. Here's our surpluses annually. You then come back and say, okay, now with that additional information from the retirement portfolio itself, I'm going to enter monthly expenses of $10,000. Let's try $9,000. It just allows you now to kind of fine tune what your, you sort of now create your expenses to basically match what your Social Security, your other income, and then specifically your estimated portfolio withdrawal. And so I think what happens is a lot of people that use the software, they end up spending a fair amount of time, or at least they end up last of all looking at column R in their retirement budget tab, which is where they fine tune the expenses to meet the conditions that now exist, at least estimated conditions.
I think that's interesting, because you're like, all right, giving my my proposed, returns in my portfolio, give my other income, how much can I draw from it, essentially, to meet the expenses, to meet my income, giving all these other parameters I'm putting in there. So it's kind of like you're almost reverse engineering it, which is very, very interesting to do.
Yeah. And you think about it, if we approach this whole scenario of retirement income from a what's the driver? Do I just predetermine the most I can spend?
Right.
And then I adjust my asset allocation accordingly? Or is my asset allocation a prudent allocation, whatever that might be? And then that informs me what my opportunity for retirement spending is. I would suggest the latter.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
And that's what we're looking at here. So obviously, if a person says, dude, I have no idea where to spend $8,500 a month, say, okay, fine. So enter 5,000. It grows by 4%. The cool thing is, and this is RMD based, by the way. Let's go back. Yeah, this is based on RMD. Go back to retirement budget. This says, okay, so let's see. Our cumulative budget surplus is 2.9 million after 25 years. Our retirement portfolio itself grew from 2 million to 3.7 million. And our reinvested RMD account is 1.6 million. That gives me $8.2 million of estimated capital You go back to the portfolio data tab, there's that number right there.
Yeah.
Right there. That's that 25th year number of estimated total accumulated capital, portfolio value, cumulative budget surplus or deficit, and reinvested RMD account. And so this screen, this portfolio data tab, really is meant to be, it's a pretty good dashboard as far as what you're being shown. In the green has to do with withdrawals. In the blue has to do with the portfolio balance. So here's your average estimated withdrawal, $248,000. How often do withdrawals increase? Year over year, 73% of the time. And how often do withdrawals keep up with inflation? 93% of the time. Now, in the remaining minutes, let me just click on one more tab because it has to do with inflation, since that topic already came up. So the inflation analysis looks like this. Based on what you've entered, a $2 million starting balance, this asset allocation, 50 basis points of cost, and now if they're in the pink, you can't adjust them. The pink is telling you, excuse me, the pink is telling you, I'm drawing this data from the portfolio data tab, which is that one.
Right. That's the home page, essentially.
That's the home page, so to speak. Yeah. So the average ending balance in gross terms is 3.69 million. So 3.7 million. And we saw that here. Here's the 3.69. Yep. But what is it in real terms? Well, in real terms, it's 1.5 million in purchasing power. The actual dollars withdrawn is 248,000. That's the average annual withdrawal. But this is how I'm, this is tricky to deal with. So what I'm showing you is the needed withdrawal to keep pace with inflation is 122,000. So basically your withdrawal is 2x what was needed to keep pace with inflation. What is inflation? Well, go to annual returns. Inflation is actually the CPI. I'm not estimating inflation. I'm using actual consumer price index data, and it's right there.
And it's even cooler than that because it shows the average inflation for every 25-year time frame. I don't know if you can point that out, Craig, but it's way cool because it says from 1926 to 51, your inflation was 2.6. From 1927, it's I think you're showing it right. Yeah, you can actually see, and this is why I always say I wish they had a Monte Carlo for inflation, because you can see the average inflation specific to that time frame, which is I've never seen anything do that before. And it's not just a 3% assumed inflation. It's literally, these are the inflation rates.
Yeah. This is the meat. So right here, this right here in that 1926 to 1950 25-year period, the CPI growth rate was 1.34. So each blue bar is what was the inflation like over that 25-year period. And it really fluctuates quite a bit. The median of all of these blue bars is 3.19. Well, but if we use medians or averages, we basically give raw data a haircut. We give it a butch haircut, a crew cut, and say, let's just deal with the average. Well, but when we have the annual data,
right,
like I just showed you, we have the annual data. We don't have to use averages. So in every 25, so in the first 25-year window, here are the 25 CPI figures that I use every year. I use the actual data as it actually happened. And this, wrong tab. This is, and Josh just mentioned it, this is not Monte Carlo. This is actual historical data. But some of the graphs look a lot like Monte Carlo. For example, if I go back to detailed analysis, let's scroll.
You're right.
And this is kind of a fun graph. I scroll down. So here's the progression of annual withdrawals. Now let's remember, what are we doing here? Oh, this is RMD. Okay, so the withdrawals are coming out on the basis of the RMD schedule, and here's the schedule right here, 3.77. Now, obviously, I mean, you might be running this when you're 80, okay? So you're now using this for the first time, you're 80 years old. Well, your RMDs are going to be different. They're going to start at 4.95, and by the time you're 104, they're 20%. Well, that changes things. So if you go to detailed analysis, you're now an 80-year-old. Oh, things just got rough. Well, you're 80.
Right.
Now you're looking at RMD until you're 104 years old, and your ending balances are now quite a bit lower because you're deep into the RMD table and heavy. I mean, let's just go look at that again. You know, when you're at age 90, your withdrawal rate is 8.2%. That's your
remember
RMD.
that table also does not show the side account, you know, of excesses.
Oh, that's true. That's true. We go back to retirement budget. Right. So even though your portfolio is being hammered, you can see right here, the portfolio value is at 2.8.5 million. By year 25, it's 1.5 million. We didn't see that before. Right. That only happens when you get deep into the RMD table and you start hitting those high percentages. You start to pick it up in terms of what it does to the portfolio itself. You actually had kind of a sneak peek in this graph right here. This blue graph is showing these are the portfolio balances each year for each of the 74 different people. And you can see they're starting to arc down. The balances are being driven down because you're deep in the RMD table. If we go back to age 73, you see a very slight arc down in the later years. If we go to a 5% withdrawal rate, oh, nothing at all. A 5% withdrawal rate is very straightforward for a portfolio to handle. This is your progression, or this is kind of the Monte Carlo type of graph that you're looking at all these different pathways, but they're not forecast, they're actual. This is what actually happened using historical data. A 5% withdrawal rate in the blue graph, these are your balances year to year. They're just trending upwards. Your withdrawals in the green graph, they're trending upwards. Yeah. And this green line with the black circles and this blue line with the blue circles, that's that 1975 to 1999 ideal window. And I just highlighted it to sort of call attention to the fact that's what sequence of returns, quote, risk. Right. It wasn't risk at all. It was reward.
Well, that's where the standard deviation is also a good thing. A lot of people say, oh,
yeah, right, on the upside.
No, it could be good too.
And so in any particular slice, if you were to take, like in year 15, what's the variability in, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. What's the variability in year 15 of the withdrawal in that year? Well, it could have been as much as 388,000 or as low as 80,000. That's the variability in how much you're withdrawing based on which 25-year period we're looking at. In the portfolio itself, in year 15, what was the variability of the ending balance? Well, it went from 1.5 million up to 7.4 million. So these graphs, as you study them, there's a lot of information embedded just in the graphs. But if you want to see it more granular, you go back to detailed analysis, you scroll down, here's the annual withdrawals by year, each year, and then in tabular form, in year 15, there's 388 was your largest, and that is right here. Here's your average, here's your lowest. Same idea with the balances of the portfolio. Here's the average balance year to year. Here's the highest single balance. Here's the lowest single balance. That data in tabular form right here. Anyway, that's probably about enough for today. But it gives you an idea of the really important interaction between the retirement budget page and the portfolio data page, which is now super big. I'll try to handle them.
I'm going to get to one question because I'm going to get some steaks on the grill, but I want you to tell people where they're going to get this. Denise, she just asked, she goes, can you do this instead of monthly withdrawals? Can you do it to quarterly?
Sort of. So in the retirement budget, no, I mean, I could give you the password to unlock it, and you could enter stuff as quarterly data, but that's going to get messy.
Yeah, well, Denise is from Wisconsin, so no one cares.
I like Wisconsin. Yeah, it's better off to let it be monthly and then just kind of on your own, translate that into quarterly.
So guys, let me just say I'm going to unshare the screen real quick, Craig. Look, man, there's so much stuff in this thing. Craig is literally, well, not literally, but theoretically scratching scratching the surface. Like I'm on that thing every day. And I'm like, and it's like, whoa, because Craig's not doing it justice. He can't. He got an hour here, but I'm just saying it's like, but it takes time. It takes like when Craig first emailed it to me, I was intimidated. I said, I'm not going to mess with this. And I'm just like, dude, I'm on there every day because it's fun, man. It's like, we're geeks, data geeks on this stuff, and I change everything, and it has the rolling. I even changed some of the color schemes on the graphs and stuff. And it's just there's so much data in here. And if you're a data geek like we are, like Bob's in here, and there's Roger and all these other guys, man, you're not going to regret your purchase on this. So, Craig, tell everybody how to contact you and how much it's costing and all that, because I know you kind of adjusted some stuff in that regard. So tell everybody.
Yeah. Well, for years, the price has been $200 for the spreadsheet. And then for Josh's listeners, I offered a 50% discount. So it was $100. Then maybe a month ago, I decided, you know what? I'm competing against a lot of free tools on like the Vanguard website, the Fidelity website. Those tools they really, really simplify things down. You don't have near the control, but nevertheless, it's hard to compete with free, even though they're not the same tool. So I lowered the price of the RPA to $50, and that's per year. It's
worth it. There's just no way around it. It's worth it. I mean, if you're a Vanguard guy and you want everything for free, yeah, maybe not. I mean, I'd say it is, but for us on this thing, it's got 100 people on here right now. I mean, my goodness, the $50. Yeah, look, people do whatever they want. I'm just saying, man, come on. Anyway, it's fun. If you like to entertain yourself, I enjoy it immensely. It's fun.
And it is entertaining because there's a little analyst inside everybody.
Yes.
And there's a what if question. Well, what if I change this? What if I change that? Well, that's the beauty. You do that and you see the outcome. And what I have learned, and maybe Josh, what you've experienced, is that the walkaway value is I am way less worried about
100%.
stuff.
Craig, when I'm working on his book, I said this whole 4% rule. And look, I'm not against Bill Bengen. He did great work, but we've so ingrained that into people that they're leaving so much money on the table when they die. It's insane, or they don't retire soon enough. And I just had a client the other day just said he got a quadruple bypass. He didn't know. It's just like, man, all of a sudden I wasn't feeling good. It's like, this is not the right answer. And so the 4% rule is it sets this parameter like this to avoid this one scenario. You're like, yeah, but how about all these other times leaving $20 million? And that's what your stuff does. It says, like we just said, we said, I forgot what it was, but as long as you stayed in there in the first 5 years, every single time, not every single, but 90% of the time or something like that, not only did you bounce back, but you bounced back way above what it was. It's
right. That's the power of being familiar with history. And if a person thinks, well, the future will only be way worse than the past. I don't know how to propose that that's not true. I mean, other than, will there be windows of time? Can we have a 2008 again? Sure. But 25 years, we're talking 25 years. A lot happens in 25 years. the markets are naturally the way they are, with an instinct to solve problems. Whatever the problem is, the market is collective human behavior, and human behavior tries to solve problems and fix things. And is there selfishness? Of course there's selfishness. Is there self-interest? Of course there is. But taken as a collective, if I'm going to stop and help somebody change their tire, it's because I want to be a good dude.
Right.
And I believe that they're a good dude. And so you don't have to be, Pollyanna about this.
All right.
We're going to have windows of time, as we've always had windows of time, where things are rough. And the point is, if you're really that pessimistic, why are you investing in the first place?
That's what I'm saying. Than just being CDs. I mean, if you're that pessimistic, and the nice thing is you can still adjust the number.
And you can model that. You can model that by having 100% cash,
right,
or a fixed return. That option I showed you,
or reduce the cash by 200 basis points. You can do it. I mean, you can do it.
Yeah, you can model pretty much any world you want to create.
Right. Absolutely.
And then I think you'll walk away thinking that's doable. That'll work for me. And by work for me, meaning, am I going to kill the portfolio? No. Even if you take out 8%, you're going to drive the value of the portfolio down.
Right.
But because a percentage withdrawal mandates that about 1/3 of the time, your year-over-year withdrawal will decline.
Right, right.
That's what protects a portfolio from being liquidated. And so the sheer mathematics of it really start to dawn on people as they become, if you think there's a little analyst in you that can muster 60 minutes of analytical stuff, you will walk away using this software with more confidence.
Yep.
And if you have more confidence, you can enjoy money and what money can produce, what money allows you to do a lot more. The health, what did I read? It was something like loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 8 cigarettes a day or something like that.
Wow.
It was really an interesting stat. And I would say that fear, that I'd have to do, I mean, I'm just guessing, I haven't done the research, but I would say that fear is like smoking 2 packs a day. I mean, just and I'm not saying that an Excel spreadsheet program is going to solve your problems, but there is great power in, we can stay in the boat if we can look to the past and say, oh man, that was a rough period, but they got through it.
Yeah. And
why would we be any different? So that's, I think, the value of it is not so much the, it allows you to believe in the tendency of both equity and fixed income to regress to their mean. And for those who had a stats class, regression to the mean is a very, very fundamental premise of a lot of statistical analysis and probably human behavior.
Yeah.
And clearly market behavior. So this really puts meat around the regression to the mean sort of phenomena, and you can test it and test it and test it, and then walk away thinking, yep, I feel okay about this. And you can, if you want to be conservative and have a 20% equity, 80% fixed income, do that. And if that fits into your retirement budget, great, you win.
So just 712, then I put the link here, but the number 712portfolio.com, just email Craig, man. And, just $50. Just say, hey, Craig, there's no more discounts. He's discounting even more than what the discount was before. And Ted says, Chi squared.
Yeah. Chi squared. He's remembering a stat term. Good job.
Yeah, well, Ted's he lives in Maine, so we'll excuse him for that.
I used to live in Maine too.
Yeah. All right, why don't you get these steaks on the grill for my kids' Screen Bloody Murder? God bless, Craig. So remember, 712portfolio.com. And if you have any questions for Craig, just email these.
Yeah, just email. Just my name. Yeah. My name, Craig, Craig, at 7, the number, the word 12 spelled out, portfolio.com. Happy to. And as you know, if you decide to buy it, you start using it, you have questions, just email me.
Absolutely. I've had many people email Craig and they said Craig was fine. No one said, oh, he told me to pound sand. Nothing like that at all, man.
Nope.
So,
nope.
Craig's one of the good guys, that's for sure. All right, I'm going to get out of here. God bless, Craig. Thanks, man. Right. We'll set it up for, well, I'll email you later on. We'll set up the next one.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all being here. See ya. All right, cool.